Welcome to this session. We have with us Tapan Singhal. He is the MD and CEO of Bajaj Allianz General Insurance. Tapan, welcome and thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
Tapan, yours perhaps is one of those few industries which hasn't borne a hugely negative brunt because of the pandemic. But nevertheless, there have been some disruptions at work with working from home, the digitalization, the pace. What have been some of the key takeaways for you at an organizational level?
There are two, three things that have been great takeaways. First and foremost, the will of human, the resilience, the desire to make a difference, always surfaces in these times, and that to me was amazing. Like when the crisis hit, I think most of us were unprepared, in terms of what would happen, how things would be, and where will it be. And even if we were thinking it was like 2-3 months or 4 months, nobody thought that it will become like a continuum and will stay for kind of forever. And these kind of circumstances, I remember initial excitement of my team to serve people, because understand in general insurance claims happen, health claims happen, people would have accidents, factories would get burned. So in a way, for us, it is like there's nothing like a break. Things would be happening and customers would be requiring us to be on their side when things go wrong. That is what we do. We get paid to do good. So you really can't even take like an hour's break and say, okay, after 2 hours I start working. It doesn't happen. If an accident happens, something has happened, claims are due process. You have to ensure you're able to deliver money on time to hospitals. So nothing should stop. So what I saw was that the enthusiasm of my team was immense. And luckily we had digital assets, which obviously initially I was thinking that the uptake was low, but just overnight, I think in 24 hours, the uptake was huge. You'll be surprised to know that we issued close to 1 crore policies and settled close to 30 lakh claims, all digitally. Our grievance ratio dropped by 90%. So that was the initial learning that you should, one, never underestimate your people in terms of what they can deliver. Two, you should never stop investing in tech. You never know when it triggers, and it really pays you back in terms of all investments. So these two were the initial learning. The next phase was when it just continued. I think that was the next phase. So the initial enthusiasm, excitement, that peaked out. And then the stress, the stretch, and then you start hearing cases of COVID amongst people you knew. You started hearing fatalities, and the fear that started creeping in. Now that was the next phase, which again is a big learning in terms of how you're able to create enthusiasm, the excitement, be with the people in difficult times. How do you ensure that you're able to, if something goes wrong for somebody or the family, how do you provide support? Because other thing which came out, which is again pretty strange, was the stigma attached with COVID. Somebody had COVID, it was like people running away from the person. They're shunning it, not knowing that tomorrow it can happen to you. But food has to go, even if you're quarantined. There has to be medical supply. Somebody has to deliver all that. So how do you do that? How do you give the comfort to people if something goes wrong? The company is standing rock solid behind you, and you do not worry. That was the second phase. And then third phase is now, which is the current phase, is the acceptance part of it. But people have understood that this is now going to be there. You have to lead a cautious life. You should not become like throw caution to wind. But things have to go on because you do not know when does this end. Like all the predictions or whatever people say, nobody can say for sure that okay, this month this is over. It doesn't. So how do you take on this phase? In all phases, immense learning. I really amazed at the kind of learning I had in just short period of time. I don't think any university or any kind of lecture have taught me so much.
Yeah, this is really the school of life, and irrespective of what level we are at or what our experiences, we are all being schooled in a certain way.
That's true. Very true.
You mentioned about your industry in terms of healthcare claims, etc. Are you seeing an increase or a big movement in the importance that people are paying to their own health? Not just COVID, but otherwise too, that they are becoming more health conscious and looking at wellness as a spend category. Is that something coming across?
Yeah, so if you look at, and it's pretty interesting, wellness has been on the top of mind. I think if I look at the wellness industry as a whole, even before COVID was doing very good, no? People are worried about wellness, and any kind of stuff you put on in the name of wellness, it just picks up very, very fast. But in terms of insurance, if you look at, it's very interesting. You have this government health insurance scheme, which covers about 40 crore Indians, at the bottom of the pyramid. Then you have these companies which do this group health insurance, which covers quite a bit, in the larger corporates and larger companies. And then you have the missing middle, where people can afford insurance, but they don't have, let's say, traders, SMEs, other places. Let's look at COVID. The average cost of COVID is 2 lakhs, and it goes up to 5 lakhs, in cases 15 lakh rupees also. And nobody knows that, for whom it can trigger when.
Yeah.
The cost of a COVID cover is about 700 rupees. That is all it costs to have a COVID cover. Now, technically, the servers of insurance companies should be crashing, because you have huge crores of people who don't have cover, but they're exposed to risk, and nobody can for sure say that they will not be contracting COVID. But that's not the case. The industry is saying, yes, the growth has happened, health is growing at about 40%. Okay, but before this, the health was growing about 20-25%. So it's just a 15% growth. But compared to the uncovered population, is it enough? So one amazing thing, I spoke to a psychologist friend of mine to understand, as to why does this happen. Like, it's amazing, 700 rupees for a year. Anybody can afford it at that segment, and it gives you a cover for COVID. Things go wrong, and just a 15-day waiting, you can actually get to the hospital, you get treated, you get, and you pay for it, and it's perfectly fine. So what my friend says is that the human brain is not wired to see risk, and that is why humans have actually progressed also. Otherwise, they will be staying in caves.
Sure.
When you're when something hits you very close, that is time you get very worried.
Right.
So that is the attention span that you have, 1 week, 10 days, and then it's again back to where it is from your risk perception.
True.
So it's actually pretty interesting. So when you look at a hurricane or an earthquake, so for those number of days, 15 days, 20 days, the peak happens and then it goes down.
Sure.
But that is how it is. But I think since you asked me a question, anybody listening to your session here, my humble request would be, please be insured. I've seen people with and without insurance, and I've seen a difference in the dignity of people who have insurance and don't have insurance, when they get to hospital. So it makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. In terms of the personal learnings, Tapan, we've all had to make adjustments, changes in our personal and, work-life balance as well. What have been some of your sort of mantras on how you're going through this phase and, some takeaways for our viewers?
So you to understand first from my perspective, how do I look at it? I am the founding employee of this company, which means that about 80-90% people in this company know either personally recruited them or mentored them. And if I look at most relationships, I'd have been involved, in getting it. So quite a few of the relationships or partners have been doing it. So for me, it's more of an emotional connect, not just being a pure professional. So why I'm telling you this background is, in a crisis which affects life and lives which are close to me or to anybody, it's highly intense. It is not a normal, how would I say, a normal crisis where a decision wrong can be a couple of crores here and there, or that is wrong. But here a decision wrong can actually affect lives. When you're under this kind of stress, it really has the power to seize you, and that is where your leadership, entire learning of your life comes into play. How would you be able to see through in such a huge emotional, and business crisis, all hitting it together, which you have not handled in your living memory in the past?
Sure.
How do you ensure that your company runs well so that your people's livelihood is not affected? And how do you ensure that your people's life don't get affected, because of this balance to me was very huge and overwhelming. But I think God has been kind, because I've had so many failures in the past also. One thing I always learned is that never allow any crisis to seize your thinking. Always have this huge desire that how do you make best use of the crisis are you in? How do you become stronger? How do you become much more powerful than what you were before it hit you. So every day in the morning when I get up, even today I say, I will be stronger than what I was before the crisis. My company will be stronger, my people will be stronger. And I as a leader will make all efforts in that direction to ensure that we are stronger. And I think it's a huge mental game that one has to be very, very clear. And don't allow any kind of doubt or negativity to start seeping you. Start small, and then it occupies a bigger and bigger space. And if you allow that to seep through, then there'll be time that you'll be completely seized by it. And I think it'll be too late for you to be able to handle that.
So it's a lot of sort of mental resilience that you practice consciously, right? And a lot of,
yes,
if I can call it, mental fitness as well, to see that you remain sturdy in your views.
I think it's just about being conscious about it. I think if I talk about human beings all across, I think they have immense power within themselves.
True.
What happens at a conscious state, if you don't, you're not conscious about it, and you're not being very clear that I have to be there, you slip. So sure. Fitness and all is good. Like people talk of mindfulness, they'll talk of meditation. Sure. That's good. But the point is that if you are conscious about it, and if you're making that effort, and the purpose is clear to you, and you want to ensure that you're able to deliver to your people and to your customers, to the company, to your family, and everybody.
Sure.
And you take it on you, and you keep on taking that one step at a time and keep on moving ahead, it makes a difference. So the fitness and all comes in pretty easy. I think it's like somebody who goes to for a walk every day would normally become fit. Somebody who works on ensuring that you are very clear that in a crisis how would you want to emerge. You will become fitter on that basis. So that is something which I strongly believe.
In terms of looking ahead, Tapan, one of the questions I think CEOs are asking themselves is, what do they now expect from the Chief Learning Officer going forward? Given that we've all seen probably perhaps in our lifetimes just one major black swan event such as this, of this magnitude and this duration, what would you expect from the Chief Learning Officer going forward?
To me, a CLO is a very, very important position. I think let's understand. One is what you normally would read in a book, that the stereotype, put in some course studies, send some links, and tell people, okay, if you do this skill set, you get here. I think that era of CLO is over. If a CLO can only do this, then he's not fit to be a CLO. Sure. Or she's not fit to be a CLO. I think today's era, when information is abundant, people know what skill set is and how it is moving, and skill sets are also becoming redundant in a hyper speed. I think a CLO's job is to give that nudge, and to see in terms of the resilience, the mental preparedness, the quotient of figuring out how to solve issues at a hyper speed in a crisis, how to get information, data, what is the new skill set which may last for about, let's say, 6 months to 1 year, and then a new skill set again before the new one is emerging, how this person of the team is able to prepare for it and go on that basis. So earlier learning was like, if you had a university degree, I think it is last you till you retire and beyond that. Today, university degree does not last you more than 4 months after you enter a job. It has no relevance. Whatever you had learned in 4 to 6 months time, it's over. So I think the CLO's job is very, very important today's time. And actually, personally, I interact with my CLO to see that they're at a cutting edge of understanding how things are moving. So the earlier era is gone. And if there's one learning that we had from COVID, from a CLO perspective, is every day is something that comes out new, which you had never thought would happen yesterday, in terms of business or people reaction, or in terms of opportunities getting created, or in terms of how business are getting redefined. It's such a hyper speed. And I think CLO is the anchor for all this, and that is the role that I
So in effect, you're expecting a lot more agility in terms of future skill sets, a lot more resilience, both within the role and, driving resilience for the employees as well. Right? Great. Thank you, Tapan. These are some fantastic views, and I'm sure our viewers have made notes and will be able to really draw upon some of the big takeaways from here. Thank you so much for joining us.
That was my pleasure completely. Thank you very much. Thank you.